Welcome back to AI Chronicles, everyone. This time, I am exploring how AI is reshaping product marketing with Murtaza from LlamaIndex. Hi, Murtaza. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well and I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Yeah, when I came across your profile, I saw lots of product marketing, and given that I work as a developer advocate, I work directly with the PMMs pretty adjacently. So I was just curious, I wanted to get an understanding from your point of view of how you see AI and how product marketing is like if it's shifting, the role of it is shifting. So I know that you have been in product marketing through one of the biggest shifts when, AI started shaping not just how we build, but also how we communicate product. So how has that changed your day-to-day approach to storytelling and positioning?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And I love working with DevRel, so I'm glad to be in a room with friends. Just for some history, when I started working in product marketing, AI wasn't even, it was the AI winter, quote unquote.
Mm.
People were still worried about data systems and how can we bring data systems together for visibility. System integrators and data platforms were like the hot commodities. Snowflake, Databricks, all these were super early, nothing at IPO. And it was like 2017. We're all still worried about getting data systems in place. And
Yeah.
there was a thing called AI, right? And the thing called AI was used for like sporadic use cases, and maybe people would talk about it as like a data system, but they were not viewed as autonomous product on their own. They were viewed as features or add-ons onto data products, right?
Hmm.
And then I started working in computer vision systems. We're using traditional ML models, YOLO models, CV side, and stuff like that. And lo and behold, people started using LSTM, like which is a pre-transformer, like you probably know. And then everyone really got into something called an LLM and ChatGPT, and that's all history. Um, I think as it applies to product marketing, I mean, every role I feel is being wholly transformed with
Hmm.
AI, and especially product marketing is the most nebulous thing where it's like a lot of people like talking about product marketing, but very few people understand what product marketing actually is. Where it sits in the nexus of a lot of different functions and does a lot of the traditional knowledge work, right?
Mm.
Like doing research, synthesizing research, listening to kind of calls, doing interviews, and synthesizing the insights to create some type of messaging or storytelling that then can be amplified across channels that can then be unified within a company. And a lot of those things that you probably understand now are all done by so LLMs are not great content creators, but they're amazing knowledge synthesizers, right? So if
Yeah.
you want to summarize a long piece of text, AI is amazing. Gen AI tools are so helpful. Whether you want to repurpose some text or if you want to even sit down and brainstorm ideas, those things are awesome uses of AI. So I think if you think of like core storytelling today, AI provides a great toolkit for like
Mhm.
research, even for like messaging that you create on your own, like words that you shape and you build together and put them into different forms of assets. Like say you want to blog, say you want to do a webinar, say you want to do all that type of stuff. It really helps you repurpose content, right? So people talk about evergreen content, and AI is great for doing that. Where I think what I think that's caused is like deeply accelerated timelines. Like
Mhm.
I think everyone feels this now is that like if you're AI, you don't have the liberty of time doing long kind of research projects where you're doing a bunch of customer interviews, you're spending weeks and months and about how to position a product and launching it a quarter later. Things are kind of launching on a weekly basis and you're kind of
Oh,
on
yeah.
all those things in an accelerated timeline. I think there's AI tools that help you do those functions, I think, to like a greater extent. You can take this conversation wherever you'd like from it. I think the crux of that is just like you could do everything you're doing before. Research has become a lot easier, and the expectations have been now that you could do it much, much quicker than you could like 3 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah, you said that right. Do you see yourself like using all these AI tools like on a daily basis for your work?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're not using AI tools on a daily basis, then there's certainly like something that could be done
Yeah.
differently in your org. I mean, some of the tools I do love are like, even using Claude with like basic MCPs,
Yeah.
ChatGPT with its connectors, and I tend to like gravitate to the one who has the better connector ecosystem. So
Mhm.
so I don't have to create my MCP servers and do all that kind of work with auth and all that type of crazy dev work that requires, which I now do using Cloud Code, which is crazy. I used to have to ask devs to build those types of integrations, but I could
Mhm.
easily do it now with a Cloud Code and do it on my own. Those two things I definitely use quite a bit. A
Mhm.
lot of other things that we use quite often is also even, I mean, my timeline for creating an asset used to be like, hey, I talk to the designers, I give them a brief, I do all this stuff. But now, oftentimes, even Figma AI capabilities have grown so capable that I could easily be like, hey, can you tweak this asset we created with using a real designer for like this other campaign and reimagine it for this different campaign? Here's what's changed. Here's how the messaging has changed. And maybe there might be some tweaks on top of it, but it gets you a good 70 or 80% of the way where like those design cycles that would take like maybe a couple weeks end up happening in like a short weekly sprint. Um, those are tools I use quite frequently. Other tools I use are like social listening tools and other things in terms of having to actually like tools like Comment have existed for a long time. But if you really think the value prop of the social listening tools, now with LLMs connected to like search, it just becomes so much easier. And all these tools, you can even program them to run on a scheduled cadence and give you like customized feeds and stuff like that. So that we could really quite easily become a market expert without having to do a lot of the manual research before. I remember like, it used to be like finding the right channel, like finding the right people to follow, finding like the newsletters or voices and stuff of that sort. And all of that kind of volume play, like that to find those right signals, becomes infinitely easier when you're using like a Gen AI service that kind of runs on a regular cadence.
I totally agree with you. And I mean, I see myself using all the tools that you just mentioned, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude and GitHub Copilot. It's like, okay, I like certain of these tools for certain things. Now, but given that all these tools can help you generate content or run marketing campaigns, even analyze market data, but they can't always like feel the pulse of a user community. So my question to you is, how do you think the product marketers can stay relevant when automation handles so much of the tactical work?
Yeah, I think you put it actually really well where automation handles a lot of the tactical work. Like even the stuff that needs like connections, like I use NAN so
Mm.
often in my day to day of like Zapier used to be a thing, but NAN just gives you so much more configurability and it's so easy to use even for a non-dev, right? Which is kind of amazing where it handles a lot of the manual things in terms of staging a blog post or doing some type of manual tactical task. It handles a lot of that. On the other hand, I think AI cannot write. Like AI fundamentally has a writing problem where it's a good synthesizer. It is a amazing amazing at giving you an analysis or a report or a summary of condensing large text into key insights. But when you ask it to write, it is fundamentally not a good writer. And I think that's where product marketing still has a very strong role in storytelling and kind of knowing what insights to bring in when and I think a lot of it so much is about taste, where like people discount like even in DevRel and product marketing as well. So much is about good taste.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Enough time in the right communities, you kind of know what resonates and what doesn't resonate, what's good and what's bad. And yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's great. But if you don't have good taste, you're gonna end up sending some pretty like generic, non-resonating content that won't really do a company all that well.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's nothing I don't agree with it. What you said. You have to be. Yeah, I like the way you phrase that. Synthesizes it. It's not like not so good at writing everything as is. Um, Pivoting a little bit. Product market fit is something that I hear a lot, especially in SF bubble that I live in, with all the startups trying to figure out, or the mid-sized companies trying to figure out. So finding product market fit in this AI driven world, it feels so different because how fast the users evolve and the competitors launch even faster. So what signals do you personally look for to know when a product is truly resonating?
Yeah, I think just to comment on product market fit, I think the entire classical model of finding product market fit, where you have a roadmap, you find product market fit, then you
Mm-hmm.
amplify and grow there, this has totally gone in the garbage now. Things are changing so quickly, both in the ecosystem partners in terms of what Anthropic and OpenAI have willing to be in type of invest in around the ecosystem and building products that whole startups were like whole groups of startups were building, right? As well as like the large cloud providers, and even at the pace at which innovation is happening, it's no longer the case where we have like a quarterly plan and it's like, oh, this is exactly what we're going to build, and this is exactly what we're going to launch, and this is the product that we know that users will love. And if you only do more of like that thing, it'll amplify growth a lot. Today, when we talk about roadmap and when we talk about what we're to build, it often changes every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And there is still a thing written on paper that says this is our quarterly goal. But I think the pace at which we innovate and the pace at which we find product market fit has just fundamentally changed, and there's no resting, right? Like we see large businesses, without taking names, that have reached 100 million NAR plus, that quickly lose 40% of their market value due to attrition, largely because it's a cyclical and quickly changing market. Where I think the traditional kind of narrative or product market doesn't work. And what that means as a product marketer is you have to continuously rethinking the story. You have to kind of accept the fact that you won't get the traditional timelines that you used to when it
Mm.
things like launches. And what is true today could likely be very wrong and different and evolve in even a span of time of like 2 to 3 weeks.
So basically, you're saying that given how the rapid evolution is happening of AI in general, the product market fit basically starts evolving with it. Like it's not gonna stay like static for a long period of time.
Yeah. And I still think that the classical methods of finding that are still true. You asked about signals, which I totally forgot about, but I think the classic signals still indicate like high usage metrics.
Mhm.
I think those quantitative metrics of higher usage and revenue and stuff like that are still great. But I think there's a lot of like steps out there about like everyone is talking about AI and AI. Not many people are finding value in AI. But in the cohort of users, you'll always find those like 5 or 6 users that are totally killing it, have like have like usage metrics that like far surpass the other 90%. And then you talk to those people and you find out what they're doing, right?
Mhm.
And you're like, okay, what are you building, right? Like, what are you actually building? How are you finding value? And why are you using this so much more than anyone else, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's that classical exercise of like doing user research and talking to real developers rather than like reading like the LinkedIn feed or reading like what people postulate about what is going on in the AI market. What really works is it's those people who are like finding value, who are like writing probably the next 4 to 6 weeks of what your roadmap should look.
Hmm. That makes sense. And yeah, we have been talking about AI, and everybody, I think, fully now understands that there's just so much noise right now. Every company claims to be AI powered. What do you think separates a strong, believable narrative from just another, buzzword driven one?
Okay. I'll start with the story. 2 weeks ago, we did something very unusual at LlamaIndex,
Okay.
where we're used to going to like all the AI conferences, like your
Mm-hmm.
Data and AI Summit, your Microsoft Ignite, Google Next, AWS reInvent, and all the various other AI summits. But we went to a vertical AI show. It's called InsurTech.
Okay.
It's one of the largest industry events for insurance.
Mm.
We went there because we randomly have a lot of people who use us in the insurance industry. So we're like, maybe it makes sense to go there. A lot of people seem to like us insurance, and we've never really thought these people out, but maybe we know where they go. So we went there, and there was something interesting, right? So if you see the capabilities that the vertical AI app promise today, like 100% like reduction in fraud, insurance fraud, like complete automation of claims processing. I feel like the level of kind of the promise there that a lot of the vertical apps like kind of promise today, it's kind of out there, right? And what happened at that event was that like frequent some developers who like know of LlamaIndex would like come to our booth and say, hey, like, why are you guys here? And like be like it's refreshing to see you guys here because there's not many like true AI infrastructure players here that like actually know AI really well and like treat these problems as like really hard problems to solve. And not like having these like crazy claims about like what you can do for like a particular industry and stuff like that. So I think when you especially in the dev market, like I can't speak to as much to what's happening in other markets, but in the dev market specifically, when you continue to kind of produce things that provide value to developers who are grappling with the same technical problems that you're facing,
Mhm.
those to resonate. And when you stick with like those like high level goals of what you're doing for a particular industry or what you're kind of doing that kind of don't match the reality of where the technology is sitting today, I think that's where the mismatch happens, and that's where like a lot of growth happens, and like you see a lot of people who might be interested, right? But like, when it comes to validating that and actually intervening into enterprise, like those things come out, right? Those things that kind of are okay on your marketing website, but you learn as you use technology and then you use the tech and you validate it, because eventually like, some developers, right, whether it's a vertical AI app or whether it's like an AI infrastructure tool, whatever it is, at some point there's going to be some type of technical validation. And I think those are where things kind of come up, and often that's where you see a lot of the churn that happens in the enterprise as well, where there's a lot of people that have a lot of motivation to buy AI tools, but then
Mhm.
they buy these tools what don't necessarily match the reality or able to provide the capabilities of what they promise, and you see a lot of kind of attrition and in the enterprise in terms of trying a little bit, not being able to find like what are the actual ones that actually work.
Mm. So basically, you would say that the experiment of going to like a vertical tech industry was successful and probably more fruitful.
I mean, it was interesting for sure, right? Success, I think, like for any enterprise play, you don't really find out success until 3 months after the thing happened. This was two
Yeah,
weeks ago, but it was certainly a lot of great conversations.
very cool. That's an interesting idea. Okay. I will, now we spoke about so many different things and very interesting things. I'll just leave you with like one last question. If you had to advise early stage founders or product marketing managers working in AI startups today, what would you say are the new fundamentals of product marketing in this era?
Yeah. Ship quickly. Like that is like the biggest thing. I
Yeah.
I think you want someone. I've actually been in a quite the situation probably 3 times where I'm either the first marketing hire or I'm advising a company that has like or it's looking for a first marketing hire.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, great. If you're going for a product marketer, that's awesome. Often that ends up being the case just because product marketing can be quite nimble, right?
Hmm.
In terms of what they do, right? And it's not like you're buying like a T-shaped marketer, as they call them, right? That could be a bunch of different things. And it's not like give some like PPD or something. But I think what I advise you to the founders is you want someone who's T-shaped. You want someone who's able to do quick experimentation. Because as much as people tell you what you want to hear from you, like there is no secret formula to success that can translate perfectly across companies, across industries, or even across periods of time. Right? What you want is like someone who like knows particular things that you can try and knows that it can and rapidly evolve things, right? So
Hmm.
that goes with product marketing as well. When you're thinking about things like story, even if you're the initial product marketing hire, initial marketing hire, like story is only one component. You're gonna have to worry about distribution, right? So you have to know someone who like kind of knows like the end-to-end life cycle of like what it looks like to go from story to execution to kind of user growth. And even if you're not hiring for all those functions, you want to know someone, have someone who's like conscious of all those sections and can either fill in those gaps through advisors, contractors, are other people support, right? So I think having someone who ships quickly is like has tried different things and have like a strong willingness to experiment is
Hmm.
the best thing you could do for your company because there is no secret sauce and hiring that from MongoDB or OpenAI is not necessarily going to make your business.
Yeah. So, do you think like I love the advice, and I think startups should definitely be following this. When you say ship quickly, do you think there is enough scope of failure in this whole scenario? Because as much as one would want to ship quickly given the competition, but if you fail, like how would that work? Is there space for failure and then growing just as quickly?
Oh, absolutely. All of these things are iterative, right? Like
Hmm.
you want to fail fast and learn quickly, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a bunch of books that are titled that, like fail fast, right?
Fail fast. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you often learn more from the things that don't work than you do from the things that do work.
Hmm.
Because maybe you'll try some experiment that doesn't work, but there'll be two or three insights that push you slightly better in the right direction. And eventually you'll find that thing, right? That
Hmm.
thing that'll help kind of your product sing, that'll help kind of your story shine, and that'll help kind of help you penetrate through the various voices in the market to kind of have your own brand voice that's like recognizable and that resonates with like your potential customers.
Makes sense. And that I'm guessing would indirectly help find that product market fit, right?
Yeah, product market fit's a journey.
It's definitely a journey. Yeah, totally understood. Awesome. So thank you so much, Murtaza, for joining, and everybody who's listening. Thank you so much. This wraps up the episode of AI Chronicles, and I hope to see you in the next one.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much,
much.
Sonam. I appreciate you having me here.